Welcome to Be Provided Conservation Radio, sharing stories and information about the environment, wildlife, and the people who are dedicating their lives to protect the world for future generations. These inspirational stories will take you from the Santa Cruz Mountains to remote areas of Africa. Here are your hosts.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Be Provided Conservation Radio. I'm really happy to be back and interviewing the amazing people doing good around and for our world. So today's guest is in Texas and we are speaking via Skype. And I am happy to say I have Dillon Jones on the show today. He is called the Contemporary Conservationist. He is a young and passionate leader bringing awareness about the wonders of the natural world and wildlife to our younger generations. And our older generations too, for that matter, like myself. So I look forward to seeing his work unfold as he progresses with his passion and his work and his career. So I began to follow you, Dillon, on Instagram a few months ago, and I really enjoy the posts that you have, and I really recommend people to go check it out on your Instagram feed. You're really good at showing the work that you're doing. And I felt like you were a perfect fit for the podcast. So thank you for joining us today.
Not a problem.
First off, I just wanted to ask, since you are a reptile amphibian person, were you the kind of a child that brought home snakes and turtles and frogs and had your mom's bathtub full of stuff, like creepy crawly things?
Yeah, well, it was actually really interesting because I was scared of pretty much everything in nature up until I was about 13 or 14.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't go garden with my grandfather if I was scared of earthworms. It was extreme. But, I mean, even though I was scared, I was always really fascinated by it. I'm come from the generation that grew up watching Steve Irwin and Mutual of Omaha and Wild Thornberries and whatnot. And those were always the shows that were on, always nature documentaries, always something.
Yeah.
And I don't know. And then it made it even worse because my family owned a pet store originally. Yeah. I would go in and just be scared, wouldn't touch anything. And then, I don't know, one day it was just like a flip switch and I just wanted to hold everything, grab everything. And I mean, it ended up, I think at one point I had 40 or so snakes that I kept.
Oh my gosh. That's crazy. So what flipped the switch? Do you know? Was there a specific moment where you're like, I really have to just get involved with these? Do you know? Or
It's hard for me to tell. It was just, I can just remember being in the store and someone had a masked snake out and they asked me to hold it. And, if you had asked 2 weeks before, I would have said no and ran out the door. But I don't know. It just kind of was like, I want to do this, and I just got hooked ever since. So. Oh, that's amazing. Well, good. Yeah, I know. It's funny that you say that because the pictures you sent me for the show notes, you're holding snakes and they're wrapped around your arms and everything. So, well, yeah. Well, we're glad that you got over that fear. So. But how did you come about with your title of contemporary conservationist? How did that come to be, and what is a contemporary conservationist exactly? Yeah, so about a year ago, a little over a year ago, I was really trying to figure out a way to show people what it is I do and what I'm passionate about. It kind of came just out of nowhere. It was the feeling of I know I do really cool things, and I know I am educating people through other mediums, but I really wanted something that was my own, that I could really show, this is what I do, this is what I am passionate about, and I want to show you what I think is really cool. So I mean, of course, the alliteration contemporary conservationist kind of clicks in your head a little bit better. Yeah, but it really just came out of a big feeling of wanting to educate people, really wanting to, I don't know, kind of be that person who I grew up with, that was on TV, grabbing all these snakes, showing them really cool things, and bringing people into my world.
Yeah, that's when I first saw the name. That's kind of, I thought of, what is a contemporary conservationist? And I thought, education these days is so important. Almost more important in a way than, well, maybe not, but is going out into the field and being a field researcher. I think just educating people on the world around them is kind of a contemporary theme these days, it seems like. So
Yeah, no, it definitely
yeah.
is. Because I've done a lot of education with a local organization that deals with birds of prey primarily, and
Okay.
you go to a lot of libraries and schools, and it's always been really, really interesting to me that I mean, there are kids there that have honestly don't know what a hawk is or don't know what a pigeon is, and some of them don't even know what a bird is. We've had that more often than I would like to believe.
Is education something that it seems like you're really passionate about? Did you go to school to become, did you go to school for biology, or did you go to school for education so you could teach others? How did you get some of your training in this work?
So I mean, this actually right now is my last semester in college. I'm
Oh,
still an
okay.
undergraduate, but I have a wildlife and fishery sciences degree. But for me, education was always really, really important because I don't know, I've always been really involved in the research process, and I've always seen it as a three-step cycle. First you learn, then you do, and then you give back. And for me, education is how I always wanted to give back.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, learn what's around you, learn about basic ecology, or just learning could just be through observation. You see some system in nature happening a certain way, and you really want to figure out why. So then you go out and you do that. You figure out why is it happening this way. You figure out what little steps in the process are causing it to happen. And when you actually really, really do the research properly, you can give back, you can educate, you can add to that knowledge pool, or you can really go out there and inspire a little kid to grow up to be a conservationist.
Do you think you're going to continue on with, going towards higher education, or what are your goals ultimately
Yeah,
with that? Yeah.
yeah, no, definitely my ultimate goal is to go into higher education. I want to get my doctorate. Definitely, I think the professor route is kind of calling my name really badly.
Yeah.
I think it just blends a lot of my passions together. So, I mean, right now I'm at that very, very scary step of sending emails out to people that I don't know, hoping that they'll like me and take me into their grad school programs. But,
Nice, nice. Well, from what I've seen, I mean, from the work that you've been doing in the field and your post and everything, it seems like the people would be reaching out to you eventually. So, but yeah, that's wonderful. I could definitely see a professor route, and it'll also give you a little freedom to, for the research, getting out in the field, and the education kind of puts it all together. You're right. Well, interesting. Yeah, I knew you were young. I didn't realize you were still doing finishing up your undergraduate. So that's awesome. And you're in Texas, right?
yeah, so I'm based out at Texas A&M.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Okay, great. Can you share any of the, information on some of the work that you're doing now, as far as, I see pictures of you out in the field doing all sorts of things. Is there any one particular project that you're concentrating on now?
So right now, I guess I'm kind of in an off season. So I'm really focusing on writing up a few of the things that I've done and sending it out for publication. So this past year, I did a project out in Houston, Texas. There's an urban nature sanctuary, Edith L. Moore, and they really wanted me to figure out what is there, what reptiles and amphibians are present in the park.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went out there for about 4 or 5 months every other weekend and just surveyed, looking for snake, lizards, turtles, frogs, just really anything I could find. And then I compared that to citizen science. So people going out there with their smartphones and taking pictures and saying, hey, I found this.
Yeah.
So right now we're writing that up. And then this past summer, I spent 3 months in Belize and at a research station. So there's a few papers we're trying to get published out of there relating to mud turtle biology and movements, diet studies on a few species of frogs, and just a few other random little things.
What are you seeing in your research, and some of these studies and work that you're doing? For example, what is the world of amphibians and reptiles facing as far as challenges go, or what are they doing to keep their survival? Is that a good question, or is that too broad for you?
No, that's perfect.
Okay.
So yeah, actually that last project I did down in Houston, it was really interesting because it was a nature preserve that had been designated as such since the 70s, but it has been protected by old landowners for quite some time. But over years and years of habitat encroachment, new McMansions popping up right across the street, the little preserve is only, I think, 18 acres right now.
Oh my!
It's very small, but it's kept so beautifully out there. I think the final counts were something around 28 or 30 different species of reptiles and amphibians just in this little 18-acre park.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and it's not like on the outskirts of Houston. It's right in the middle. It's right at the intersection of two highways. I think 10 minutes from downtown.
Wow, that's amazing. That's great.
Yeah, and for me, that was something that's really, really cool. That it's like, there's this amazing little pocket of biodiversity in the middle of a state. But at the same token, it's also, this used to be so much more, and there used to be a lot more that lived here.
Yeah.
There were things that really should have been there that I didn't see a single one, like tree frog. Didn't see a single tree frog down there, which, if you're ever in Southeast Texas, you always hear them no matter what time of day, or, well, not time of day, but at night.
At night, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so some of these that are surviving in that little pocket are definitely adaptive to, the urban stuff growing up around them. And some aren't, obviously, like the tree frogs. That's too bad. So is there overall decline in tree frogs overall, or is it just in that area that you've seen?
Globally, there is a pretty large amphibian decline. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, at this site, I really don't know the causes. We're thinking it might have been bullfrogs coming in and eating egg masses, but we're just not sure.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, there's a lot of factors that could cause it, so we're not sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's why you're studying it. It's hard. There's so many factors involved, whether it's, like you said, bullfrogs, it could be environmental, it could be whatever. Yeah, who knows? How do you go about educating people about these issues and how to care for land and such, so these reptiles and amphibians and all animals can thrive?
Well, you touched on it right there, and education is the first step for sure. I always feel like you need a very strong foundation before you start trying to change people's minds, start trying to inspire people, and education is where that starts. We all know someone who's very, very set in their ways, but we also know kids who are extremely influenced by someone coming in with a little snake or something and showing them, hey, this is cool. So for me, I feel like I grew up with a lot of really awesome nature shows, really awesome nature documentaries, and people who were really, really passionate about it. And I have two little brothers, and I don't see that same type of education for them. I don't really see that appreciation for nature that I feel like I had when I was really little.
Yeah, I see that too in the younger generations as well. It makes me sound old saying that, but yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, no, and it's really unfortunate to me. You don't have to be, sitting in the woods, eating granola, wearing chacos to love nature. You can have a very simple appreciation of it and really want to protect it yourself.
When you're teaching kids about snakes and reptiles and such, what do you talk to them about, or what do you teach them?
Well, it's oftentimes I have to find a benefit for them. And that's true in any type of education or even like an argument. You want to figure out, hey, I need to make this beneficial to the person I'm talking to. And so for kids, it's difficult because they're not facing, I guess, some of the, air quote, real world problems that, say, a farmer would, where I always talk about it to them as, hey, snakes are actually really good for pest control. They really help out with the mice population. Well, the kid cares about that to a small point.
Mm-hmm.
So at some level, we do have that cool factor, that snakes are cool and they can do this.
Yeah.
And that does seem to help a lot. But it's also just kind of invoking the child's natural curiosity and letting them ask questions, letting them figure out why they think things the way they do, and letting them figure out how to overcome.
Yeah, that's smart. Do you find that kids, whenever I do outreach for some of the wildlife rescue things that I do, kids are naturally curious. They do like to ask questions, and interesting questions if given the chance. So do you find that's true with some of the younger people that you teach as well?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've had occasions where I've taken children out with me on my field surveys before to look for things, and it's amazing because I've had children who have almost really never spent any time outside, and they had some of the most fun ever just flipping logs with me and looking at the snails and little fungus, maybe a few worms underneath it. I mean, it's really, really fun to watch them just kind of discover that there's this whole world out there and that they didn't know about.
So are you kind of reliving your childhood through them when you were scared of some of these things? Like, yeah, that's awesome that they're enjoying this, doing this. So
well, I never thought about it that way, but maybe, yeah.
Do you have a favorite amphibian or reptile or any animal that you like for some reason or other?
It's always hard for me to pick a favorite.
Yeah,
and I think it changes week to week. But for some reason, there's this not little, but there's a boa out in New Guinea that I just love for really no reason. They're called viper boas. And they're just kind of brown and fat little sausage boas. And for some reason, I just love them. They're one of my favorite species in the world. I actually have a cutting board with one of them etched into it. I just love it so much.
Oh, that's cool. How were you introduced to that? Have you actually seen one in person?
Yeah, I saw one at a zoo when I was really little.
Oh, okay.
And I don't even know what zoo. I don't know where. And I don't know, ever since that day, it's just like captured in my head as this is my favorite snake in the world.
I have to Google that. So it's a New Guinea viper boa?
Yeah.
I have to check that out. Yeah. So I don't think I've heard of that. So are they as big as some of the big boa constrictors you see in the Amazon or anything like that?
No, they're not that big. I think they get around 3 or 5 feet, which, I mean, they're still considerable in size. They're very stocky. But no, they're not really that big. Not like the big boa constrictors that we get Central South America.
Yeah, interesting. Did you see anything like that in Belize?
Yeah, we actually had a boa in our kitchen at one point.
Oh my God.
That was fun.
I bet. Are they, besides constricting you, I mean, are they easy to handle, to remove, or, yeah, that'd be pretty scary.
It depends on if you're okay getting bit or not. I mean, this one was about 2.5 or 3 foot. It really wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
So I just grabbed him. But I mean, they've caught really large ones on site before, and they can be a little bit trickier if you don't know how to grab behind the head. So. Yeah,
I bet. Yeah, the reason why I actually lost my thought when you mentioned Belize earlier, I started to think of, I just finished the book Jaguar by Alan Rabinowitz. Have you ever read that?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, well, he talks about some of the snakes in there, and fertilants, I think. Is it fertilants snakes?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, that's why I lost my train of thought earlier, because I was like, oh, I just read that book about Belize. And yeah. So anyways, just a sidetrack. So the viper boa is your favorite. That's interesting. I like that. So I'll have to Google that. So we're in the work that you're doing, with the younger people and your field work and school work and education and all that. What advice do you have to people going into this line of work? Or
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is to just get involved. It's always scary to say that you have to do something and you're really passionate about something, but you don't know how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of people get caught up in that they have to do this grand thing to really make a difference. They have to pick up 2 tons of plastic in a year, or they have to go completely waste-free or whatnot. And I don't think so at all. I think if you just get involved, there's so many small local organizations that are dedicated to some cause of wildlife, of sustainability, ecology, that it's really easy to get involved if you take that first step.
Mm-hmm. So
and for me,
go ahead.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask, what did you do as you were getting involved with this?
Yeah. So what I did was, I knew I was one of the few college students who came into college kind of knowing what I wanted to do. So I think it was my freshman year. I walked up to a professor and said, I really, really want to do research with reptiles and amphibians. Can you help me out? And he kind of pointed me to someone else, and it kind of just took off from there. I think it was my first semester there, I was caring for about 100 animals. And then my second semester, I spent 10 days in Panama doing parasitology research.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So I was, a little like frail, acne-ridden 18-year-old, and I was going into the jungle to look for snakes to pull parasites out of their mouths. Yeah, it was a really life-changing experience for me. So
that's pretty amazing, though. I mean, that's why I was shocked when you said you were still an undergraduate, just from seeing the stuff that you've been doing and the research that you do in Belize or going to other places. It seems like you're doing some advanced almost work in a way, probably because you are passionate about it. And
yeah, and I started
open.
young. So.
Yeah. Well, 13. So when you started liking snakes. So did you volunteer at all for any wildlife organizations or anything before, like while you were in high school, or did you just help out at the pet store where your parents owned it? Or
yeah, so my high school, I dropped out of high school in my junior year, and finished it out through like homeschooling myself essentially. But most of the time I was spending it's really because I was spending so much time at the pet store playing with animals essentially. I realized that I knew what I really wanted to do, and sitting there learning things that weren't really passionate to me or relevant to me, I just couldn't rationalize that, I guess.
Yeah.
So I just started really working in this pet store, and I was given a lot of freedom, which really allowed me to, I guess, work with things that I never feel like I could work with anywhere else. Work with large constrictors and, just beautiful animals. And, it's an experience that I would never trade anything in the world for.
Interesting. Do they still own the pet store, or is it still around? You said your younger brothers aren't interested, so I assume they're not doing anything like that.
Yeah,
so.
No, my family business is a custom aquarium manufacturer, so we decided to stop doing the pet store because it was great for me, but it's a lot of stress, and it's not the business is a little shady at times, and we really didn't like that.
Oh, yeah, bringing in certain pets from different areas. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of coaching and whatnot with that, so we just couldn't really feel good about that anymore.
Oh, well, that's good. That's good that you realize that. So awesome. So Yeah, I find it all really interesting. I don't really know that much about amphibians and reptiles. I don't really shy away from them. I just don't know a lot about them. I was more of a bird person, so it's always fun to hear people be excited about them and learn a little bit more. So, but anyways, what gives you hope about the survival of some of these species that are kind of disappearing?
Yeah, it's hard to find sometimes. I mean, we're constantly bombarded with media posts, Twitter, Facebook, everything that are just very focused on what's going wrong in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I really appreciate movements like Earth Optimism that are, it's just I think it started a year or two ago maybe, where they're trying to say, hey, things in the world are not all doom and gloom. There's actually good happening. It's easy to get caught up in what's going wrong. So for me, it's actually talking to people and seeing that there are equal number, if not more, people who are passionate and really want to save the planet, and seeing also these corporations that are starting to do more things that are sustainable, environmentally friendly, whatever, like, Starbucks getting rid of straws.
Mm-hmm.
It's a small step. It might not be the, getting rid of all plastic, but if you're affecting corporations that make, an enormous amount of money every year to change one small thing, that makes a big difference. And so that's kind of what gives me some hope.
That's good. Yeah, I think you're right. I think the more that I do these podcasts too, I find that there are people who have a passion and a more positive spin, and that's one of the reasons why I keep doing it. There is a lot of good work being done, and yeah, the whole Starbucks thing is kind of like, movie stars giving nutrition advice or whatever. People tend to listen to the movie stars more than their nutritionists, and that people are going to look at Starbucks and it's going to be a great example, right? That they're giving up straws. And so it is a good thing, and it's a big thing, even though it's just one thing, So yeah, awesome. Well, do you have anything else that you want to talk about with some of the stuff that you're doing that we could have missed? Like anything more on the frogs or amphibians or reptiles? I guess frogs are amphibians. So.
Yeah. No, overall, there are a lot of issues, and the biggest one, of course, is habitat loss and fragmentation. Whether it be just building new houses or building a road or deforestation, whatever. That's definitely the thing that's affecting the most amphibians and reptiles worldwide right now. But it's also that's really hard for the average person to do anything about. That's something that falls to the governments, that falls to corporations to really tackle. And like we talked about with Starbucks, I think there is a change that is starting to take hold, where big businesses are kind of realizing that there needs to be something done environmentally at some level
Mm-hmm.
to make things okay.
Yep.
We see more and more wildlife corridors popping up on roads, and we see more and more organizations actually taking into account the effect that a road may have on some lizard or a bird or whatever. And they also do a lot of damage, and I can't ignore that, of course, by building a road or building a subdivision, that there's gonna be some damage to the population. But I think that it's important to focus on what is going right and what we can do to work with these corporations instead of just fighting all the time.
Exactly. Yeah, and just how we can all coexist together with that. Yeah, I agree. But, well, best of luck to you and all that you're doing, and I hope to see more of the stuff that you're doing, and keep posting on Instagram. I love seeing your stuff, and I hope that people listening will go visit your page as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to Be Provided Conservation Radio. Links and resources to today's topic are in our show notes on iTunes. We appreciate your dedication and interest in protecting our natural world for future generations. If you like what you heard, please get involved by volunteering, donating, and sharing these podcasts with your friends. It also helps us to inform more people if you take a minute to leave a rating or review on iTunes. Have a great day, and thank you for listening to Be Provided Conservation Radio.